This is going to be an interesting video. It's almost an experiment about what people like to watch.
Negativity or positivity.
Today I'm going to talk about the worst products that I've ever reviewed. The worst products that I've ever done a video on. Now, it's not all doom and gloom because some of these, well, all of the companies I'm going to talk about today actually have some products that I like. That I really like. That is why it was almost a shock to me when some of these products were so terrible, in my opinion. This is going to be kind of like the Razzies, except for hi-fi equipment. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about some terrible products that I didn't like. If you follow the channel for a long time, you may already know about this product. It is from a company that makes, by all accounts, pretty good products on the entry level. Once you start getting above what they consider their entry level, it starts to become less and less of a value. I am, of course, talking about Hifi, specifically the Hifi Zen Stream. This is a $400 streamer that is available today. I guess technically it is a streamer. On paper, this thing seems like it's great. It's got a bunch of great hardware. It's got some different modes. It can be a rune endpoint only. It can be a tidal endpoint only. It can kind of do some streaming. Now, they may have updated the software, but I'm not optimistic. You can hardwire the internet and it's supposed to work off of Wi-Fi, which it really didn't. It dropped out quite a bit, especially in my office right here. The funny thing is, though, even a Weem Mini, the little tiny streamer that's $80, has never dropped out in my office here. The Weem Pros have never dropped out in my office here. The Cambridge Audio CX-N100 has never dropped out in my office. The other Cambridge Audio, the $500 streamer, which is only $100 more than the Hifi Zen Stream, never dropped out in my office here. So the first thing that made this one of the worst products I've ever reviewed was that, well, it wasn't reliable from a wireless connectivity standpoint. The second thing that made this the worst Hifi product I've ever reviewed, and one of the worst products I've ever reviewed, is the software. It was unusable. You legitimately had to enter a IP address to get into the software. At the time, I don't think there was any phone app that you could use to configure the device or bring in multiple streaming platforms. Again, they could have had a software update. It could be way better now. I don't think it is, though. If you'll take some time, search out the Hifi Zen Stream on the YouTubery, you'll see that my experience is not uncommon. Other creators have had the same experience. The last thing, kind of the nail in the coffin of the Hifi Zen Stream, was how the company reacted to the video that I put out. I would say they were a bit aggressive about how they disagreed with my video. They wanted to send me a new one. They sent me a new one, but I got on 2 calls with them. And this was when I believe this was the first year of my channel. On one hand, I really appreciated that they sent me a product, but on the other hand, I was being honest about my experience. They didn't like what I had to say. I was on 2 calls with them. They were very pushy, and finally it got to the point where they were so pushy that I sent the second unit back to them without listening to it or without testing it further. Since then, I have never heard from Hifi again, which isn't all that surprising, but the way the company acted, the software, and the dropouts for wireless connectivity makes the Hifi Zen Stream one of the worst products that I've ever reviewed. A fairly recent entrant into the worst products I've ever reviewed list is the SMSL sucks. The SMSL, that's right, the SMSL SUX. The X stands for 10. They should have gone with SU10 instead of SUX. It's so on the nose. This is not a terrible product from a sonic standpoint. What makes this one of the worst products I've ever reviewed is the price to performance. At $999, I would say that this is probably the worst value in DACs that I've ever had in the house. There are, I believe, 9 different sound color modes. There are 7 or 8 different filter roll-off modes. An absolute laundry list of how you can tailor this DAC to your specific needs. I feel like when I'm putting a sound color mode on a DAC, it kind of takes away the purpose of the DAC. At that point, I don't really feel like it's DAC. I mean, yes, it's a DAC, but I kind of feel like it's almost like a DAC slash EQ, which may not be a bad thing. The problem with the SMSL sucks is that there are DACs from SMSL with similar chipsets that cost half as much, and in my opinion, sound better. When the SMSL sucks was in its default mode on both the filter roll-offs and the sound color modes, it was harsh. I felt like it was over analytical. I felt like it sounded digital on the top end, and the point of a digital to analog converter is to make it sound analog, robust, full of life, dynamic, not sounding like an old TV speaker that's all mid-range focused. I have had dozens of SMSL products in, and I think a lot of them are awesome. However, I think SMSL should have stayed in their lane, and that lane is affordable DACs under $500. Affordable DAC headphone combos under $500. I believe there were 2 linear power supplies in this product. Very heavy duty product. On paper, again, everything looks great. I think some of these companies, though, just take a bunch of decent parts, throw them in a box, give that box to an engineer and say, make something out of that so we can say it's really good. I feel like the SMSL sucks, and the Hifi ZenStream kind of suffer from that same thing. Great parts, on paper, supposed to be good. In practice, not so good. Ooh, a speaker. Of course, we have to talk about the KEF LS50. I can't even be mad at the KEF LS50 because it was a product that really helped me start the channel. It made me so angry I had to turn on a camera and talk about it. But at the time in my life when I had saved up all that money and purchased the LS50 expecting it to sound good, I was really disappointed. The reasons why I don't like the KEF LS50, I think they're way too mid-range focused. I don't feel like they have accurate timbre. I don't think voices sound like voices. I don't think cymbals sound like cymbals. I don't think snare drums sound like snare drums. The imaging, very good. Concentric driver. Oh, I forgot to talk about what products I like from Hifi and SMSL. Products I like from Hifi, pretty much the entire Zen series. The Zen Phono is borderline revelatory how good that Phono preamp is. On SMSL, I love things like the SU1. I love the DL200 from SMSL. There's a ton of products I love from SMSL and from Hifi. Okay? We put that to bed. The LS50. Shouty in the mid-range, no bass to speak of. Very fickle about the amplification. I have tried a dozen different amplifiers on the KEF LS50, and there are only maybe 2 that made it sound really good, one of which was a 25 watt TAC Class D amplifier. For whatever reasons, the LS50s love that amplifier. And it was $1,600 or $1,200 for a pair of those. So I think it's an incredibly poor value for money, shouty, not accurate, and tonally inept at what music actually sounds like. But a great product from KEF would be the KEF Q150. Even the KEF Q350, I think, are spectacular, and I think are way better in comparison to the KEF LS50. And alas, KEF has never contacted me to review anything. I have never had a direct contact at KEF. Kind of understand why, but when I purchased both the Q150 and the Q350, I'm open-minded. If they make a good product, I'll say it's good. This may be a little bit of sour grapes because I've never had a KEF in that was sent to me. KEF, send me something. I'll be honest. The Audio-Technica. Yes, I did purchase this. The Audio-Technica AT, get ready for it. Ready for the model number? AT-LP120X. So I just call this the Audio-Technica 120X. USB-BK. So on a Amazon Prime Day, which incidentally is coming up, and we are going to do a bunch of live streams on the Prime Day specials so we can talk about the best deals going on in Hi-Fi, and we're going to talk about some deals from other retailers as well. Anyway, I had heard in the comments all of the time when I did any videos on fluence, any videos on U-turn, any videos on affordable projects, any videos on affordable projects, that I need to look at the Audio-Technica 120X. It's $350. I got it on sale on a Prime Day for $250. So I pulled the trigger. I purchased it. It showed up last year, actually, last summer about this time. I was in Disney. My neighbor had to bring it, and I went and got it. Anyway, that thing felt like a toy. I recently had in a Crosley $44 turntable. Obviously, the Audio-Technica feels a little bit better, but not that much. Everything was so brittly plasticky feeling. The internal phono preamp on the 120X was abysmal, unlistenable. When I plugged it into my stereo, I'm like, if this was the first experience somebody had with a $350 turntable, I could see them never listening to vinyl again. The build quality was terrible. The phono preamp was terrible. Just terrible all the way around. And you can get a $199 fluence, $199 U-turn that feel way better, actually have some wood in them, are heavier, they're belt driven, and I think that's why everybody would go crazy over the Audio-Technica. It's direct drive. Guess what? The Michelle Gyro SE is belt driven. That's the turntable that Steve Jobs had. That's a brilliant turntable. All of my turntables that I have, I've got a new one though. It is a direct drive. All the turntables that I have and I use on the daily are all belt-driven turntables. I thought it sounded terrible. So my first experience with a direct drive turntable from Audio-Technica, the 120X, was a -1. That's why it makes the list as one of my worst products I've ever reviewed. All right, we're going to rapid fire these last three. These are all direct-to-customer Hi-Fi companies. Arylic. Now, I just did a video on the Arylic S10 Plus, which is a streamer. It's pretty good. Arylic has also had some real duds coming out. The H50, pretty terrible. It is a wireless stereo amplifier, I believe, with streaming. That's right, with streaming. And I think that's why I didn't like it. Right now, the price is $249. At the time when I reviewed it, I believe this was coming in at $400. And that is why I eviscerated it on the review. They do have another product out there that is basically the same product, except it doesn't have a streamer. And they don't do a very... B50, that's what it is. So the B50 is $140. The H50 was $400. And I thought it was terrible. If you think about it, the Weem amp comes in at $300. So the H50 was $100 more than the Weem amp. Did everything way worse than the Weem amp. B50, though, is actually on my back porch and runs my speakers for TV duty back there. So it's got an HDMI input, which is good. H50 completely overpriced. Obviously, they got that message because it is not. It's dropped $150 in price. Again, the lane that Arylic needs to stay in is the ultra affordable lane, and anything that costs above... And anything that's more than $300 coming from Arylic better be pretty good, because you are competing against Weem at that point. And Arylic doesn't have as good of software as Weem has, and frankly is just less refined than the Weem. Not a bad product, some of them. H50, overpriced, not a good product. Duke Audio has... I like Duke Audio. They have a bunch of cool speaker switchers and amp switchers with VU meters. Not great quality, but not bad quality. They had a bunch of little integrated amplifiers. They have kind of a clone of the IEMA T9 Pro. I don't remember the exact model number. They've had a ton of cool stuff come in, but they had one that was such a head scratcher, I never understood what it was. I watched that video back last night. Pretty good video. I'll link all the individual videos to these in the description. But it was a music streamer, the C100, but it wasn't a music streamer. Really what it was a digital music player from either USB or an SD card. It could be a digital music transport, and it also had its own DAC inside. A product that was probably should have come out 20 years ago, and maybe people would have purchased it then. I don't know. Still to this day, I don't understand that product. It's built well. It has very nice buttons on top, a decent little screen, but it was $200. And again, when you have a $200 product going up against a Weem Pro or one of these Auralic streamers or a Weem Mini that actually does streaming, still to this day, I don't understand that product and what they were thinking with it. And I imagine they did not sell very many of them. But don't let that scare you off on Duke. Duke needs to stick in its lane. Duke's lane is speaker switchers with VU meters and affordable amplifiers, some with VU meters, some affordable amplifiers with some tubes in them. They make some pretty decent products. The streamer was not one of them, though.